Spider on my camera. Come on now. Hey guys, it's PeaPods and more with me. I hope everything's going well with you and you're taking care of yourselves and the ones you love. And it's actually a little bit chilly right now because it's so early in the morning. But in fact, speaking of chilly, I want to share two things with you. I'll try to timestamp somewhere up here if you want to skip ahead and not have any talk about what I'm going to be talking about, which is the reptile show in Taylor and my experience there. But yesterday I came out for a little walk, went to my chair, sat down, and I'm watching the bridge here behind me, which it's not a bridge, but that's what me and the kiddos call it. There's that metal beam going across, and oh, it's a squirrel. Sorry, I saw 4 deer there yesterday. But something was catching my eye and I couldn't see it at first. I'll try to post some of the video. In fact, I tried to catch some of it. But just watching a big old dumpy, janky snapping turtle try to climb up a metal thing and his shell is straight up and then flips down was hilarious. But then speaking of the cold, I forgot my script. I had to go back and get it. But I'm like, I'm going to check the wood over there with the garter snakes. Cool morning, see what I see. I'm not expecting snakes. I open it up and there's 2 garter snakes. And it was just rad. It's one of those moments where I wish I had had my phone out, but in hindsight, I would not have been able to have done that because I would have had to hold the board and the snake. But my point is, I grabbed this one garter snake. He's chilling, and at first he's kind of like just waking up because it's so cold. And he's kind of wiggling, going back and forth between my fingers. But then he's like, wow, this guy's kind of warm. So he starts relaxing and kind of snuggling up on my hand. So I'm holding him for about 2 or 3 minutes, put him back. As I lift the board to put him back, the other one was gone. But right where I saw the other one, there's one that I want to say he's probably the largest garter snake I've seen. He's got some, I'm going to try and get him on film. He's got these beautiful orange sides. I got to see him with my daughter when she came with my nephew to put Ruby, our new garter snake, away, which, spoiler alert, we saw him out there and he is just fascinating, massive. And his little head was poking out of the reeds looking at him like, can you let us just sleep for a little bit? So I'm going to leave them be for the rest of the day. That was just a neat experience over the last 2 days. I'm going to be able to share a little bit of that turtle one with you. Not good because it was very shaky, but then I'm not going to be able to share the garter snake one, obviously, because like I said, I only have 2 hands. I have to hold the board and the snake, so I would not have been able to hold the camera. That aside, I am back from the, 2 days now ago, Taylor Reptile and Pet Expo in Taylor, Michigan. It was an interesting experience, and as I think I mentioned, I do have a script, so I want to talk about that. It was a very interesting experience, in good, I mean, totally good. Even anything I say that's bad is generally more of a learning experience or just something that some people don't mind, some people may be used to, but it just stood out to me. But before I do that, I want to do some thank yous, checking my notes over there. But first and foremost, I want to get out of the way. Thank you, Wally. I'm not going to go into all of it because it's just personal. You've done a lot for me. And if you don't know, Wally, what you've done for me, or if you ever need to know, and I may just spring it on you regardless, but if you ever feel the need or it's unclear, let me know. I will spell it out how amazing you have been. That aside, I got to meet technically 3 new people yesterday, and I actually got to meet Nick, who I've mentioned before on my channel, and these are all local native people. So I do want to thank Phatty Rad Reptiles and PeaPods. They are people who don't prefer to be out there like I am, which again I understand, but that was the information they preferred me to pass along. I will try to get some information down below. I don't think one of them have much information yet, but again, this is, I don't want to get it. There is a massive spider on my phone and I can't film it on my phone. It's a orb spider. I'm sorry. It's about, yeah, good. It's literally crawling across my screen. Come on, go across the camera over here. I'm at least gonna do this then. Anyway, so I wanted to thank those 3 individuals, but I don't want to get ahead of myself because I want to talk about one of the positives of my experiences. So I've thanked people. Before I get into the collective experiences, I want to talk about what I consider my main takeaway, I don't know if I could say it was, that was an odd sound. The highlight per se, because my entire time was a highlight in one form or another at some point, but I bought my daughter a snake. And it was awesome. And the things I wanted to take away, that I took away from it personally, are, in your excitement, you need to slow down. There are many questions that either I didn't ask, and I'm just watching that spider on there, and I would have liked to, or that I maybe more responsibly should have asked, or I had a chance to introduce conversation and dialogue as if I were a new pet owner. But I was excited, and there's a little bit of context behind it. For that context, starting with, I planned on spending $0 at that show. All I wanted to do was film and get out, and I did a pretty good job of it. And my point is, I generally tell people, and I made it a rule for myself, you don't go to a place and buy a thing that you were not expecting to buy at some point. I don't think it's responsible. And I still think that's right. Now, the further context is, I already looked into a lot of this stuff. I may have talked to you, if you're new to the channel, you may have seen stuff on here that several weeks ago I found what is an endangered garter snake here in Michigan, or protected, something like that, where in short, you cannot keep it as a pet. So, I found it, looked it up, I was like, okay, can't keep it. But when I introduced that to my daughter, she was like, yes, I want a garter snake. And it bummed her out that we couldn't keep that one because it was a nice looking Butler's garter snake. So I went through the dive of looking through, taking care of them, setting stuff up, how to, and blah, blah, blah. So, it's not something that I was diving into. Even, Nick with me at the store was just saying, like, you have everything you need aside from a snake. And so I pulled the trigger on that. The price was right, and the snake is beautiful. As I think I mentioned, my daughter named it Ruby Stripe. So my plan is to potentially get, because they are communal, garter snake for each of my daughters. Maybe one for myself, I don't know. But that's my plan. So again, that was an interesting experience, because things I would have liked to ask was, how old is it? Where was it caught? Is it native, captive bred, which I'm, in the hobby, they almost always are, but these are things I should be asking regardless. And while they're semi-moot, and I could always reach out to them, which I'm going to do via email, and ask questions that I should have asked initially. Again, for me personally, it's not like I'm buying a crested gecko that I'm not ready for and have only literally seen. I haven't done the dives into care, brumation, breeding, cycles for them, dietary habits, supplementary things you need to do for them, all of that. It's not like I, came home with a sand boa again, where, it's just a snake, so I can, no. I looked up garter snakes. I was checking garter snakes, the different morphs, the legalities, how to order them, price ranges, things like that, cohab things, questions about breedings, and all that. Those are things I took care of beforehand. So it wasn't like I was just going there buying a tortoise because they're easy or something like that. So it was a very positive experience for me for that. Let me know if you think, like I said, I should have asked more of those questions, which I do still believe I should have, either in the interest of myself or of the channel, and, letting people see that kind of experience, where that's something I may do. I want to be more cognizant of in the future, but I was very excited at that time. But that's not an excuse. Like I say, sometimes you need to tamp down those emotions and think a little bit more clearly. So I want to start with the negative. And the first negatives are kind of a positive, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but they're also kind of from what I hear, excuse me, I'll try to edit that out, is part and parcel with a lot of shows, in that it's kind of very consolidated, and some would say cramped and loud. Where now, if I take that to the next 2 points of mine that were negatives in a way, is that it was my first time and I was live streaming. So that, with the loud, cramped nature of it, at some points was a sensory overload for me. Or I would ask a question, and instead of listening to the answer, I'd be looking at my phone to make sure I had, yep, okay, they're in frame. What did they say now? I only caught part of it. And it's, again, ducks flying over. So again, I don't mean that as a negative, as in something insurmountable, just something to be cognizant of. In fact, one of the other people that I met there was their, I want to say maybe second time at the show, or maybe their first, I'm not positive, but my point is they had a similar experience. They had to walk out a few times and just kind of reorientate themselves, which is awesome. You know, I say you don't have to be, run away from it, just kind of get a breather and reattack it, so to speak. So, and the other thing, this is small, this is very microcosmic. They charge admission that you have to pay cash at the door, but when I got there, now this wasn't an issue for me, I had cash, which I rarely do actually, now that I'm thinking about it, but I happened to have it, but their ATM was down. But just hearing some of the people, they say, yeah, the thing is always down, it never works. If you're going to have that system set up where you expect people to pay cash at the door and you don't allow any electronic alternatives, which I don't think they did, you should make sure you have your ATM working. But that's just me. Then there were people who were camera shy and I don't mean that disparagingly, not even remotely, but there's also a wide range of camera shy. So what I mean is, there were some people who they didn't want their pets on display. There were some people who didn't want the person on display, but they would talk. There were some people who did not want to be on display or talk, but they said you could film anything, and myriads of people in between. And one of the things I did when I first got there was I may have missed a couple people because some stalls kind of blended into the next. But anyone with live pets, I tried to walk through beforehand, say, hi, I'm Steve-O. I don't want to talk much because I want to get most interactions that I can get on screen or recorded or live stream, but I am going to be coming through and recording and or live streaming. Do you have anything you don't want filmed in regards to yourself? Do you mind speaking? So those 2 points. And do you have anything that you don't mind being filmed, or that you don't want being filmed if you don't mind me being filmed? I tried to be courteous about that, not just get them and gotcha moments. So I tried to be accommodating of it, but my point is, with me, because I'm the person who I don't generally care, sometimes I forget about that, and I'm again trying to be aware and cognizant of all that is important to me. I'm not trying to make people uncomfortable. I'm not trying to bully people into conversations or get gotcha moments or anything like that. I just want to have real conversations with people, so I tried to accommodate them. And the other issue, maybe again, is it's a one-day event, which from what I understand is not uncommon, but to some people like me, for example, I may go there one day and say, okay, you know what? I really liked that animal. I had no idea I wanted. So I'm going to go home today, research it more, see what I have, see what I need, and then make a list and come back tomorrow, get not only the thing I wanted in terms of the pet, but maybe I didn't have enough cork bark and I needed a UVB light and a blah, 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 and I'll get that too. You don't have that option if it's a one-day thing. Again, I don't know how many are. I've seen mixes of where it's 2-day events, 3 days, and just 1 day. So that's just, again, one of the negative aspects of this, which is just kind of more of a, like I always say, a facet of this particular show. Now, the last two negatives, pet stress. And two people, which I was very happy, kind of talked about that they don't, it's one of the, again, negative facets of these shows is you have to stress out your animals to a degree, and some animals are better with it, some are not. They had, in fact, one of them was saying they had one gecko where 99 times out of 100 she could take it out and put it on the shoulder at shows, and it's amazing. And this was just one of its ornery days where it didn't want to be touched. And that's the kind of the thing with different animals have different stressors. I was talking to one of the ladies about prairie dogs, for example, and what I'm getting at is certain versus isopods, for example. Prairie dogs are more visual and audible orientated, and they get the shaking, but I would imagine isopods would probably be more chill regardless of what is going on out there, as long as they're not getting shook up or blinded by lights. And I can't, scorpions and amphibians, I can only imagine the stresses that they go through. And one of the guys said, the bigger stress for me as the pet seller is I want you to take home my pet because it's less stress for them, meaning if you don't, and he didn't mean this, and again, it was very informative, it wasn't him trying to push it on me, which I appreciated, but he was saying if I could make you take this pet now, he drove here, drove there, and now he's at his home, versus here and back, here and back, here and back, and then maybe he gets his home, which I appreciate. And then there were people who, that was one of the benefits of the multiple day show, is I've heard of people at some shows who will, for example, literally only bring pictures the first day, and the second day is when you will visit, and they'll bring what people ordered. And so there are those different facets of shows and the length of time and the way that you can navigate them. Now, my one genuinely negative experience that I had was with, after I had such a good experience, and I forgot, and I'm really dumb, so I forgot. I hope it's Adam, but Stella's Springtails. Me and Nick got to meet him, and it was a fantastic conversation. So thank you for that. You were just awesome. I was laughing at those two because they're crochet nerds, and I was laughing at them nerding out on crocheting, which is, again, as a nerd who just likes other nerd stuff, I love making fun of other nerds. But we're talking, I had already bought Ruby, who I didn't know at the time, but yeah, we bought the snake, and I had her in my hand because I couldn't get her back in a little cup. Again, this is not my first time, but my first time holding my snake. I've held snakes where other people would take them away, like at the Reptarium, or where here I could just, here you go, you're gone, But this thing didn't want to get out of my hand back into a cup, so I'm just holding it while we're talking, and a lady comes up, and there were two aspects of it that I didn't like. The first is that she came up very politely. Oh, hi, is that, what is that your snake? What kind is it? Then when I was like, oh, I got it here, it's a gutter snake, she kind of went right to, well, you have to put it away because that thing is, it's illegal to have in Michigan. Where the legal, and this is more of a question, from what I understand, no, they're not. Eastern or local garter snakes are illegal to have in Michigan, but this was a Western, which is out in parts of, in fact, they have ranges out west, but in I want to say it's like California and even parts of Canada, as I say. And I didn't want to argue with this lady. I'm not going to, but even Nick and, gosh, I hope it's Adam, because I feel so stupid. I'm the worst with names, but kind of, we all look at each other like, is this really happening? Like, we have people walking around with boas and monkeys, scorpions in their hand. I can walk up and hold a turtle, and you're coming at me like that very negatively. And we all just, again, none of us were there to be confrontational, argumentative. So, we put the thing away and continued our conversation, and she went away. That was a very negative experience. One where I wish I would have asked what booth she was from, because I would like to talk to her about that again. And not confrontationally, because I want to know what she thinks is the law and what she is reading as the law, because then I want to read it. Because what I've read does not say, in Michigan, you can't have a garter snake. That's not the law here. Now, that's one of the aspects of the trade Nick and I were talking about, where in fact, it was in regards to this, but we talked about it with isopods also, where sometimes what people think is a rule is something they misinterpreted, and it can have effects like this. Or I'm wrong, which I would like to know. So, that was just out of all those, no interaction I had was negative. As I say, what I described besides this lady were potentially negative aspects or facets of the trade show that were not optimal for me. So again, other than that, it was a great time. So now let's get into the positives, which was, it was very crammed. Now, and it could be loud at times. The reason I say that's a positive is, and I'll get into more of this later, the groups that the people I met with talked a lot about meeting people. And one of the things about being in either if it's loud or confined is sometimes you may have to get a little bit closer to be heard, or if you're far enough away, you may have to speak a little bit louder to be heard over them. The interesting things about that is, if you're being loud, other people hear the conversations, because there were times I heard other people talking, and now there's another small spider. I'm wondering if it's a mating pair, because there's a massive one, and now this little dude. Sorry. So that's an interesting, again, facet, or, because again, it's the same facet, but depending on what perspective you look at it from, it can be positive or negative, or potentially both in this case. So the community feeling was nice, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. The negative, not negative, but my issues and anxieties, but people willing to talk, and there were people willing to talk about my Thomas Soul Matters shirt, people talking about things out, again, I will try to put the lady's card up here hopefully. But and because I don't retain names, I retain faces and cards, which I want to talk about that right after this. But my point is, she talked about emotional support animals, and this is my own terms, but it's not hierarchy, but just how different people with different needs have different animals that may or may not suit them. With that, names, going back to Stella's Springtails, because I don't even want to say his name wrong if it's wrong again, or this lady. I am awful with names, and I want to apologize wholeheartedly if I don't retain your name, and I probably will not until several times. And there's different aspects to that. The main one is, if I meet you, hi, your name is Steve-O also. Wow, that's crazy. This guy's name is Steve-O too, that I just met. I'm probably never going to say your name again, sadly. Now, and that's how I retain names generally, where if I say to someone, oh yeah, I just met Steve-O at this place, and then I go and meet my other friend and I say, oh yeah, hey, do you know Steve-O from here? No, you should meet him, he's this. You start to retain names, but because I generally don't do that, I don't retain names, so I apologize for that. But that was just interesting. And I always talk about how life can be a lot of Venn diagrams. And what I mean specifically by that is, when I walked in there, the first guy I talked to was someone doing plants. I don't generally do plants. And then there were people there selling turtles. I don't have turtles. But those people and I could talk about bioactive enclosures. We could talk about isopods and how my hobby, which may be isopods, and how it links to your hobby. And you may tell me, oh, do you do this for your soil? Or make sure you don't do this for your turtles if you have bioactive, because this isopod may be, I don't know. My point is the variety and the depth of what I call in general the hobby, which when I say that, I'm talking about the nature hobby. You could be a photographer and be in the hobby with me. Because I go out on my walks and see that stuff. You know, I'm always fascinated by that, how linked we can be. And there's so much for me to learn from people. I'm fascinated by that. Now, the other pro, which again can be a con, is this is a one-day thing, but it's every month. So now, like I was saying, to maybe while I can't say, hey, I like that thing, I'm going to come back tomorrow and get it. What I can maybe do is say, okay, well, you're going to be here next month at the next show. Okay, I'm going to go get the enclosure ready, get everything ready, and then I'll come back next month and we'll do that. Those are other options. So it gives you time to prep. And, I'm not even thinking about this from a vendor perspective where it's not very intensive. At least in my opinion, this is outwardly, I've never done it, so it may be super intensive or a different form of intensity. But my point is, some people may not want the 2 and 3 day thing. So this may be ideal or optimal for them, maybe not for me. So one other aspect for me that was a good positive, which again, Wally was a big help kicking me in the butt, getting there and getting the experience. Now, for me personally, there's 2 different degrees of that, facets, I should say, where I get the experience of what I'm there for, the hobby, learning things, maybe buying a thing for the hobby, but also then my live streaming, like I mentioned, orientating myself and all that. That's all experience that I can't get hypothetically or just talking about. I need to go and say, okay, now I got it. Maybe next time I go, I'll plan to not talk or to talk or do this or approach differently, make a more of a different routine. Now I have a layout, so I could go aisle by aisle by, all of these things I can do differently now that I have that experience that I didn't have, that had I been so apprehensive, I may not have gone because, next time I'll go, or, that's a big thing. I got that experience. And then again, meeting and networking. All of the people just said how nice it is to see people in the hobby. And none of these people are, I don't know, technophile would be the word, that they hate technology, where I'm almost like that, where I just embrace it. I try to be as minimalist with technology as I can. They're more modern people who enjoy being on computers a lot more than I do and being online, but they're just like, not nobody, but people seem so hesitant to get to meet you right in your face and shake your hand and here, look at my isopods, not just a picture of it online. And and that was something nice about the expo itself, is again, as opposed to looking at all these things online and Discord servers and Facebook groups, seeing these animals and being able to hold them, and you know what I'm saying, it was fascinating to me. Now, that was, I think, the best part about it, meeting the community, the people. And I did not even get to fully interact as I like to, because like I said, a lot of my sad time was spent kind of distracted on this, which again, I'm okay with because of the capacity I was doing it. I don't like when people, it's not like I was walking through ignoring people looking at my phone. I was trying to be engaged with people, but again, it's me navigating that and maybe being able to get a cameraman in the future or something. But talking about experiences, one other aspect is, if I live stream, and this is again just kind of taking it through, maybe this will be an asset to you. If I'm live streaming, I don't want to interact with people. I'd want to do more of a walkthrough. Don't, you know, just, hi, I'm Steve, I'm just recording, I'm sorry. I'll be asking questions later. I'll come back around and I'll be recording. Thank you, yes. And move on. And then come back and record, because I could just record and set the camera down. It's a lot easier and forget about it. But again, when I have my live stream going, again, when I talk, especially if my camera's not fixed, I want to make sure your face is on there. So if I ask you a question, it's important. I'm an organic, active thinker. So this will, if you watch if I'm recording you, I want to make sure I'm getting your face. But even right now, if you look, I look away when I think. When I'm actively thinking, I'll say, so, okay, I have an African fat tail and then my camera goes off here. Oh, sorry. You know, it's all of that. So, and those are tics and things for me personally to be aware of. You may not have that issue. So, and those are all amazing lessons that I learned and took away from that. Now, that for all intents and purposes is the end of this video. So I'm going to say thank you. I hope everything's going well with you. You're taking care of yourselves and the ones you love, that you're having a wild summer and you're getting out a little bit. Because now I'm going to have one of those you may want to skip this moments and just want to talk about mental health and my social anxiety and one of the other ways that this plays into this. So if you're not here for that, I'm just going to give you a moment. Cheers. Love you guys. God, I'm so glad they're gone. I cannot stand them. Anyway.